Okay. Let's pull my agenda. Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll have our invocation first. And so we'll start with that. So please bless this meeting and all of our participants. Watch over our meeting and allow us to make good and wise decisions that benefit the people of Canby. I'd like to particularly thank the first responders through our ice storm of the previous weeks and all the work that they have done since then. So in your name, amen. And now we'll have our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all. Lainey, I would assume that we have no citizen input on non-agenda items.
None at this time.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Planning Commission minutes for February 8th of 2021.
Yep. I move that we approve the minutes from February 8th, 2021. This is Larry.
Okay. Do we have a second?
John, this is Jeff. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Any new business, Lainey?
None at this time either.
Okay. Then we'll move right into the public hearing. I've got my public hearing script right here. So the first one up is going to, we will consider a request to construct an emergency fire and medical station at 1460 Northeast Territorial Road on a 1-acre site adjacent to the City of Canby's public workshops complex. The station would allow the agency to better serve the north side of Canby with emergency services. That would be DR 20-06 /CUP 20-04 Canby Fire Emergency Fire and Medical Station. Tonight, this hearing, this matter before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or other land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate. Anybody? I will say that I have driven by the site hundreds and hundreds of times, and I will be participating. Anybody else? Okay.
I'll participate. This is Boatwright.
Okay. Jeff, have you ridden by there on your bicycle?
Almost every day.
See, yeah. There we go. No conflicts there. Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any counselor or regarding ex parte contact or conflict of interest? Public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have the staff report. Then we'll have questions from the commissioners. Then I will open the meeting, the public hearing meeting for testimony. First, we'll hear from the applicant. Then for other proponents, then opponents, rebuttal by the applicant if necessary. At that time, we will close the meeting, public meeting, hearing, I'm sorry. And then questions, if any, by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Are there any questions? Okay. So I see that staff report is going to be given by Ryan Potter tonight. So Ryan, would you like to proceed?
Yes, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
I can.
And
Yes.
can everyone see the slideshow deck?
Yes.
I see a little one up in the right-hand corner.
I do not.
Okay, let's see here.
Brian, I can see it. It might be their settings on their.
Yeah, I'm showing that I'm sharing it.
Yeah, Guy,
Showing.
it's probably a different setting for you, that it won't be in the upper corner. You need to change how you view. If you go up to the upper corner of yours, you'll see view, and you can either do
Okay.
standard side by side or gallery, and it'll show different views.
Okay, I got it now. Spoke right.
I don't have any of that. Okay, so
Touch that little blue thing in the upper right-hand corner, John.
the little blue thing in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah,
John, it could also be the little button that's labeled more if you're on an iPad.
I am. So I've got that. So now what do I?
Yeah, I think you might have minimized the meeting, or you can go to meeting settings. I've got the same setup here, so. And
I've got meeting. I'm at the meeting settings,
yes,
and so
I think if you go back, and just pull up more, I think you might have minimized the meeting. Is that possible?
I don't know.
Maybe, no, I guess that's not it. I don't know then. Sorry. Blind leading the blind here.
Well, what I see is in front of me says Canby Fire, North Side Emergency Medical and Fire Station. That's all it says.
Right, and then the date, and then the
Right.
case number at the bottom. Yeah, right. Okay, that's right.
Okay.
So is everyone able? Is that everyone? Jennifer, are you able to?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So good evening, Chair Savory and members of the Planning Commission. I will be presenting both items tonight, and this first one is Canby Fire's new proposed facility on the north side of town. So this slide is just a reminder that the staff report that we've written is based on criteria that are located in the code, and so that's what our findings are based on. So existing conditions, this is a tax lot that's on the north side of town, north of Territorial Road. It is a 1 acre leased area of a larger 25 acre property that's owned by the city. This property features most of Eco Park, but then also the Public Works Shops Complex. And the lease area for this facility is what's outlined in red on your screen. So this is an area that's previously had trees on it, but I've noticed in the last few days that it's there's some of the trees have been started to be cleared out. It is zoned R1 low density residential. This is a peculiarity of Canby, that a lot of our public facilities and schools and the fairgrounds are all zoned R1. So that does affect how we process development projects on a piece of land that's got that zone. And then lastly, this property is accessed by a private drive that most of you know is the private drive that goes out to Public Works and our wastewater treatment plant. So the proposed project is a 3,600 square foot emergency fire and medical station. It would be staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And the applicant's materials kind of include some additional detail on what that staffing would look like. And of course, Canby Fire is here tonight, so they might want to elaborate on that when they speak. But one of the premises of this project is that, as you all know, the railroad does bisect Canby, and the main fire station is on the south side of town. And so this would allow Canby Fire to have a facility on the north side of town to provide more convenient and speedier access to emergencies. And then, like the other public facilities that are out at that location, this proposed project would be accessed from that private drive that goes through Eco Park. So this slide shows existing conditions and a site plan of the proposed project. You can see there's a number of existing trees on the site now. A lot of those have been cleared already, but Canby Fire has decided to avoid a good portion of those trees and locate their proposed facility on the north side of that leased area, closest to where the Public Works Shops complex is already located. And then you can see that there would be a little driveway and parking area out front, and then there would also be a concrete pad in the back that could also provide some additional parking. These are some renderings of what the building will look like. As you can see, it's a pretty utilitarian building, but that's sort of fitting in with the other buildings that are out at Public Works and our wastewater treatment plant. So when we wrote the staff report for this project, we reviewed the criteria that apply. That includes a number of development standards, including parking and other things, signage. There's development standards that are specific to the zone, although a lot of those don't apply because this isn't residential. And then because it is an R1 zone, this project does require a conditional use permit. So that part of the code comes into play as well. So the staff report goes through and analyzes consistency with those criteria, and then gives findings for showing how the project's consistent. I've just highlighted a couple things here. No traffic study was required. The number of trips that'll be generated is pretty minimal, obviously. Like anything else, they'd have to provide parking, and the project does that, including a bike rack for bike parking. As I stated before, it is zoned for residential uses, so a CUP is required. In this case, that didn't really generate any additional conditions of approval, but that is something that we looked at consistency with the criteria that were in the code. And then that analysis includes a brief analysis of its suitability for its location. And obviously, like I mentioned before, you know, Public Works is out there, as is our wastewater treatment plant, and then Eco Park is also a public facility of sorts. This was one thing I mentioned in the staff report, and I just for transparency's sake wanted to mention in the presentation. In our comp plan, our comprehensive plan, which is our more kind of visionary look, longer range look at land use in the city. This 1 acre lease area is technically on area that's designated for parks. You can see on this graphic that the wastewater treatment plant and the Public Works facility is actually on an area that's designated for public use, which is a little more inclusive. And that's a little bit of a peculiarity of land use in Canby, is that our comp plan and our zoning map don't quite jive. It is the zoning code that ultimately dictates what's allowed and not allowed on this site. But this was just something I wanted to mention. It technically in our comp plan is being shown for parks. So there's a handful of conditions of approval. These are largely typical standard conditions that we would have on a similar project. The only ones that are unique to the project are ones from our consulting engineer that just had to do with the design of the driveway surface as it meets the public works driveway. Obviously, utility lines will have to be extended to serve the project if they're not already accessing that specific spot. And then there's a couple additional materials that we need to see before the final site plan sign off. So as with any project, there is a public comment period. For agency comments, we only received the normal comments from our consulting engineer, which I mentioned. And then I did have one inquiry about just the location of the exact facility. Someone wanted to make sure it wasn't in the main part of Eco Park where the most densely packed trees were. And that was partially a function of our notice. The little map on our notice wasn't super clear because it's just the zoning and it doesn't show driveways, et cetera. So those were the only public comments we received during the public review window. And so based on the findings in the staff report and the other items I've mentioned, planning staff is recommending that Planning Commission approve applications DR 20-06, which is the design review, and then CUP 20-04, which is the conditional use permit.
Okay. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners? Start with Jeff.
Is there going to be a presentation from Canby Fire?
I think so. They're here.
I'll hold and wait until I hear from them.
Okay. Any other questions from any other commissioner? Okay.
No questions, Chair.
Pardon me, Jennifer, I didn't catch.
No questions, Chair Savory.
No, okay. Then let's move ahead with the presentation by the applicant.
Thank you, Planning Commission and staff from the city. My name is Jim Davis, the Fire Chief of Canby Fire, and with me today is Todd Gary, Project Manager for Canby's Fire Capital Improvement Plan. We'd like to start off thanking Ryan and the staff at the city for their assistance in preparation for the presentation to the Planning Commission. Canby Fire, back in 2017, started performing a survey of our citizens prior to consideration of our board for a capital improvement bond issue. The number one project that came back under that survey conducted by Campbell and DeLong and Associates was the need or the want of an EMS station on the north side of the tracks. That was primarily founded by 2 or 3 incidents in which we were blocked by a train in getting to those incidents in a rapid manner. But with that said, everybody knows trains have gotten a lot longer, and all of our entrances across to the south side sometimes can be blocked, especially if the train is stopped. So with that, we did pass a bond issue in 2018, which was passed by over 70% by the citizens of Canby, which included the remodel of the main fire station, which has been completed. And the second phase is for the North EMS fire station that was presented to you by staff tonight. I'm going to ask Chief Gary, after completion of the bond issue, of course, it was passed, and we have gone through several different scenarios for that EMS station. We did enter into an agreement with the city when the past city administrator, Rick Robinson, was here for a 50-year lease on the property next to the public works site, which we very much appreciate from the city. The reason is we had quite the dilemma as far as exactly where we'd put this and fit it within the budget. With the lease agreement that we have with the city allowed us to increase the amount that was allotted in the bond issue budget for the Northside Fire Station. The Board of Commissioners, Fire Commissioners, have approved our budget moving forward for the construction of the facility that is being considered by you tonight. So we're ready to move forward with this project with an anticipated, if approved by you tonight, an anticipated start date sometime in May or June of this year. At this point, I'll turn it over to Todd Gary, who will give you more specifics.
So we're looking at, as I said in the staff report, about a 3,600 square foot building. There'll be 5 bedrooms. We'll house 2 career firefighters and 3 interns. One of the things with this project is due to the fact that it is right next to the eco park. We thought about this a lot and how we were going to kind of keep the fit of the eco park and still have our fire station. We went to some earth tone colors on the building, and also the landscaping. We've left a lot of the trees there, and our landscaping is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be fire safe landscaping. We're going to use fire safe bushes and plants and ground cover in order to be able to show the public what you can do and still be fire safe. We're also putting a path across the property. Normally there's a path, everybody takes a path and walks through there to take their dogs and to walk out into the fields that are just beyond that piece of property. So one of the goals of ours is to not take that away from our community and to maintain that. So we are maintaining that path as it goes across there. Those are just kind of some of the things we're doing to try to make this fit within the eco park. I was glad to see the park thing came up because we've really worked hard on making that fit into the park as our EMS station.
One of the other items that Jerry Nelzine, the Public Works Director, brought up is the fact of having this staff 24 hours a day outside the gate, that we're able to connect the gate to our power, but we will also be there for added security for the Public Works facility, especially at nighttime. That concludes and we'll open up to any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any of the commissioners? We'll again start with Mr. Mills.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to make sure that I was clear on why this site was selected. It sounds like the city has tried to aid the process by leasing this property to Canby Fire. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the owner of this, the leasee of this project is Canby Fire.
We are the leasee. The leaseor is the city of Canby.
Okay. Well, I guess I get a little confused because I'm reading the land use application and it has Mr. Davis's name on there as owner.
Oh, that'd be Canby Fire.
Okay. Well, that was my question. I want to make sure I knew who was who here. So what you explained was very clear to me. And the only question that I actually had was the number of parking spaces you're providing on the building. You've got 5 crewmen in here, and did I only count 4 parking spaces?
Yeah, there's 4 parking spaces in the front and there's more in the rear of the building.
Okay. Mr. Chair, that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any comment, or questions, Jennifer?
Nope, I am good. Just want to say I appreciate all of what Canby Fire does.
Second that. Commissioner Boatright.
No, I'm good. I'm glad we're doing it on the north side of the tracks. I think it's sorely needed, and I have no problems with the site or the design or anything.
I will concur with that. So I guess that, thank you, Chief, and we'll move along to, Lainey, are there any other proponents?
I don't believe so. I know we have other people on here, but I think they're on here for the next item on
Okay.
the agenda.
Okay. As far as you know, do we have any opponents?
None.
Okay, then I guess rebuttal will be not necessary. This time I will close the public hearing portion of this. And we've had all the questions that we're going to have. So I will entertain a motion to approve. Bear with me for just a moment. To approve to construct an emergency fire medical station at 1460 Northeast Territorial Road on a 1-acre site adjacent to the City of Canby's Public Works Shops complex. The station would allow the agency to better serve the north side of Canby with emergency services, which I have experienced myself, so thank you very much. So I'll entertain a motion to approve DR 20-06 / CUP 20-04 Canby Fire Emergency Fire and Medical Station.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We're good to go. Thank you very much. And we're going to wait to see some shoveling going on there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Keep up the good work. Really appreciate it. So there you go. Okay. We will now move to the next item to consider a request to subdivide a 6.68 acre parcel located at North Pine Street between Northeast 16th and Northeast 18th Avenues into 42 separate legal lots. That would be SUB 20-03 / VAR 20-01 Beckwood Place Subdivision. I will read the public hearing format. So there is a matter before the hearing board that requires a public hearing. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or other land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. So at this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter.
Is this related to Beck Pond? Is it the same family of companies?
No, this is an unrelated project. I don't believe there's any relation, although there could be. The applicant team might be able to chime in there. I'm not sure.
Would that, if so, would that present an issue for you, Jennifer?
Oh, no, I was just going to disclose that I'm friends with the Beck Pond site agent. So I just didn't want it to look bad later if it came out, but I don't think it's going to make a difference on how I vote.
Okay. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any counselor regarding ex parte contact or conflict of interest? Okay, we'll move forward then. First, we'll have the staff report. Looks like Ryan is going to be doing that again. And then we'll have questions by the commissioners. And then I will open the public hearing for testimony. First, we would have the applicant, not more than 5 minutes. Proponents, not more than 5 minutes. Opponents, not more than 5 minutes. And then rebuttal by the applicant, if necessary, not more than 10 minutes. At that time, I will close the public hearing. Then we will have questions by the commissioners and then discussion. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date that you will receive. Any questions? Okay. Ryan, I think that you're up.
Great. Thank you, Chair Savory. Can everyone see the screen I'm sharing again?
Yes.
Okay.
I see it.
All right. So this project is Beckwood Place Subdivision, applications SUB 20-03 and Variance 20-01. This is another reminder that the staff report provided to you is based on the criteria that are found in the code. Existing conditions. This is a 6.68 acre piece of property on the north side of town. It's between Maple and Pine and between 16th and 18th. So it's kind of wedged in between some other subdivisions of various ages. You can see that as of right now, it has trees. It's zoned R1.5, which is our medium density residential zone. And unique to probably a lot of other similarly sized subdivisions in town, because this one is located in an empty spot between other subdivisions, it does have 4 existing street stubs that currently dead end into it, but it also has frontage on Pine. So the proposed project is to subdivide the property into 42 lots for single-family residential homes. The lots ranging from the lots, as shown in the staff report, range between 5,000 square feet and 5,347 square feet. You see I've added an asterisk there, and that's because of something that I'll elaborate on in a couple slides. So there's a couple of those that are a little bit smaller now. But in general, there's 33 standardly designed lots that front directly on streets. And then there's 9 flag lots that are accessed from shared driveways that lead to those streets. As required by a number of our city policies that promote connectivity between and within neighborhoods, this project would include extensions of the 4 existing street stubs. And so those are, areas where the street just ends right now, but this project basically creates an opportunity for those to connect. And then the last bullet here is So the city has a street spacing standard for any number of combinations of types of streets and driveways with types of streets. And in this case, this project does require a variance for the spacing of the local streets that are included in the project, but I will explain that. So you can see on this slide, this is the proposed plat for the project. And you can see that the design of the layout and the street specifically were basically dictated to this project by what's around it. So Oak Street exists to the north and in a different alignment to the south. And then 17th Street comes from the west. And then also Persimmon is a existing street on the south. And all of these lead to this property. And then you can see the flag lots are oriented along the north side of the project. And that's really because the streets are all dictated by the existing street network. It naturally created a larger block on that side. And I just added some arrows here to emphasize the different connections to the surrounding subdivisions. And so some of these, you probably know the names because you've seen them come through in the last few years. Tan Oak is directly to the north in the middle. Hamilton Acres was just recently approved, and that's to the southeast, and those houses are currently being built. And then there's Pine Meadows across Pine Street. So as always, the staff report analyzed the project based on the criteria found in our code, and that includes development standards found that are specific to the zone, and then also more general requirements of subdivisions. So these are just some main points of consistency with our code criteria. The first one is, as you probably saw in the application submittal, the traffic study for this project does identify a intersection that will operate at an unacceptable level. However, this is with or without the project. And this is the intersection of where Pine and 4th meet, where the train tracks go over, I guess it's 4th, right by 99. And I know that's one of my least favorite intersections because you have 99, then you have the train tracks, and then you immediately have a little intersection by the Canby Depot Museum. And so that intersection is relatively far from this project. But the study, the traffic study covered that intersection because this project, along with all the other ones happening in that area, obviously cumulatively contribute to more congestion at that intersection. But as our analysis in the staff report elaborates, this is an intersection that the city is well aware that's a trouble intersection. And in fact, it's identified in our transportation system plan, and it's shown in the maps, and it's in our list of projects for the city to fund. And so I just wanted to emphasize that yes, this project, like the other ones around it, will contribute to additional congestion at that intersection, but that's in addition to just the normal traffic that already exists and a future growth rate that the traffic consultant takes into account. And so that improvement is something that will be coming in the next couple years. It just won't be here necessarily before this project is constructed if approved. And I welcome any questions about that when we get to the end of the presentation. So the next item is a lot of the normal development standards, such as parking. There are no problems. The project complies with the criteria. The lots and the layout are consistent with the zone, which is our medium density residential zone, so this is a little bit denser than some of the other properties in the area, but there's also other ones that have this zone. And but this zone still accommodates standard single family lots where it's single family houses that face the street, and that's what this project is. And then, like I mentioned before, we do have an offset issue, and I'll go back. Actually, I'll go forward here. This is the item that requires the variance. So, as you can see, there's oak that comes from the south, and then oak that comes from the north, and then persimmon that comes from the south. And so those street alignments are really being dictated by the existing neighborhoods in the surrounding properties. And so this was something that was discussed as far back as the pre-application conference. This was something that our streets team and our consulting engineer and the planning team all were well aware of, and communicated that this was something that we thought was the most obvious, logical way of laying this subdivision out. And for that reason, we support the variance, because it's really an unavoidable thing without creating a really unique curvilinear street pattern to connect those streets without having small intervals between the streets. I hope that makes sense. So these streets are a little bit closer than we ideally would want them. Luckily, these are local streets. They're low speed neighborhood streets. It's not a through route. And so planning staff does not see any detriment to having these streets a little closer spaced than our standard, and therefore our recommendation, which I'll get to at the end, but we're recommending approval of the variance. So there's quite a number of conditions of approval. A vast majority identified by staff are standard conditions that would apply to any subdivision. There's conditions 1 through 20 are the ones that have been identified by our consulting engineer, and those are just the ones related to streets and frontage improvements and utilities that's required to serve the project. There's a couple conditions of approval that apply to shared driveways. We do have a couple 9 flag lots that would share driveways, and so there's a couple requirements for easements and for how those driveways are constructed. And then lastly, we had included a condition of approval requiring coordination with Clackamas County on North Pine Street. So North Pine Street, I'll go back here, that's on the far right of this plot plan. That is still a county road, and it's a collector road. And so the standard for collectors is that we don't have lots that directly load their driveways onto a street like that, unless it absolutely can't be helped. And so that was something that we noticed when we did the staff report, and therefore included a condition requiring coordination. At the end of last week, the consultant, to the consultant's credit, they wanted to kind of head that issue off with a better design solution. And so this slide is a lot plan that's a slight tweak to the one that was in the staff report. And in this one, the applicant team has changed the area that's got the red hash boundary around it. to accommodate lots that would not load directly on Pine Street. And so if you see 14 and 15, those are now facing onto 17th, which prevents any driveways from being directly on Pine Street. And then to do that, they've slightly shifted some of the lot areas for the adjacent row of lots. So I believe it's 10, 11, and 12, and the applicant team can correct me if I'm wrong there. That difference was just kind of split through a couple of those. And because this information is coming sort of at the end, we do think this is a small tweak, and it is in response to our conditions. So this is making it a better project. I've included this additional slide that analyzes the impact of this slight change. And so there's requirements for lotting in Chapter 16, 18 that will allow some exceptions to lot sizes. And the first bullet is I want to point out that they've made this change, but there would be no change in the number of lots. It still has 42 lots, just like it had before. The average lot size would still be above 5,000 square feet, which is a requirement. Before it was about 5,100, and now it's 5,077. So there's really no change in the average lot size. No lot would be under 4,000 square feet, which is one of the requirements in the code for utilizing this exception. And then you can have up to 10% of the lots be underneath the window of allowed lot sizes. And by them only affecting a couple, they're only affecting 7.1% of the lots. And then also the lots would all still have 40 feet or more of lot width or frontage, which is another requirement. And then, so in summary, this is kind of providing you with some findings, kind of backing up that this small tweak to the site plan really doesn't change the consistency with the code criteria. The only change would be condition number 40 would not be necessary, and that's the condition that required coordination with the county on taking driveways onto Pine. And I apologize. That's a lot of information in a couple minutes. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Comments received. We received 3 agency comments. The usual ones from our consulting city engineer, and those mostly have to do with public improvements. Canby Fire requested. Well, first they have standard comments about complying with their adopted fire code, but also they requested that the shared driveways for the flag lots be 26-foot shared driveways. And so I've spoken with the applicant and they're aware of this requirement. And then Direct Link just identified their standard requirements for serving the subdivision. As far as public comments, we did receive, the first one was concerns about traffic congestion on North Pine Street and area intersections. And as you know, these are comments that we get regularly. People do have concerns with the chain of subdivisions that we've seen in this area. Pine Street and Redwood have seen a lot of residential growth, and that does mean more cars on these facilities. Like the other subdivisions, they are required to build frontage improvements on Pine, but also, as I mentioned before, the SDC's system development charges that this project would pay goes into the pot of money that the city will use to build the required improvements at that deficient intersection down at the Canby Depot Museum. We also received 2 questions about or comments about tree removal. The first was just wondering what the timing would be, and of course, staff is not necessarily aware of the exact timing. This person just wanted to make sure that they would sort of have some heads up when the property was cleared of trees. The most recent comment was just from a couple days ago, and this was someone that was had more general concerns about the number of trees that would be removed to accommodate the project, because there are some older Douglas fir trees on the site. So based on the findings and analysis in the staff report and the conditions of approval that we've included, with the exception of condition of approval number 40, planning staff recommends that Planning Commission approve applications Subdivision 20-03 and also Variance 20-01 without that condition, and also we're also recommending that the revised site plan be approved. So that concludes the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Ryan. Any little feedback there? Am I the only one that's getting feedback?
I can hear it too.
I can hear it too.
Okay. We can soldier on, but there we go.
It's gone.
Okay. So are there any questions from any of the commissioners at this point?
I have a question for Ryan, just to be sure. Do all those conditions, without changing anything, does that take care of the 26-foot wide driveway access for the fire department?
The conditions of approval were consistent with the original site plan that was submitted, and those show flag lots that have a shared 20 feet of shared driveway. And so the comment from Canby Fire did come in after that. But I believe, and I might defer to the applicant team on this one, my understanding is they can still accommodate a 26-foot driving surface on the lotting the way it's been planned.
But do we need to formally request that in our conditions, or not necessary?
Dawn, you may have additional comments on this. I don't believe so, because it's not really the city's requirement, because our city code only requires the 20 feet.
Okay.
We certainly want it to be to Canby Fire's standards. We want them to be happy with it. But Dawn, do you have any?
Ryan, I just think it's an advisory item. It's an important one for the applicant to be aware of, because they'll be subject to that 26 feet by the Canby Fire District. It's not a city code, as Ryan mentioning. So if you put it in there as advisory, that it will be something we understand Canby Fire District will end up enforcing.
We're having some feedback issues. So.
Yep. This is Jeff. I guess I have a similar concern about fairness for developers in this case, who develop to our code that says 20 feet, and then they get into the process and they discover that, oh no, it's going to be 26 feet because it's a good idea. And I'm not disputing the wisdom of the 26 feet, but I do believe that if we're gonna do this, we need to put it in the code so that people coming in and starting the process and see what they're dealing with at the start, rather than after the process is already well underway.
I would agree with you, and Dawn and I have had some conversations about this, and this is definitely on our list of things that we want to sit down with Canby Fire and talk about and make sure are our codes are consistent, because for exactly the reason you said, we don't want to have two standards and then them kind of find out at the end that they're being required to have a larger alley or driveway or whatever it is. So I definitely agree with you.
And Jeff, just to add to that, we're really trying to focus that on the front end of the projects during the pre-application process. The Canby they're present at those meetings, and then also we will be updating our website as well. So that's something we would clearly want to put on there as another note to, until we update the code, which we're, as Ryan's mentioning, we're working on that as well.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. Can everybody please mute themselves if you're not talking? Because somebody has background noise at their house or their office or wherever they are, and it's interfering, and it's really, really distracting. I couldn't hear anything that Don just said.
I'll repeat that again if that's better. I was just going to mention that we're working on meeting early on in the process with applicants, including Canby Fire, during the pre-application process. That's one thing we've been coordinating closely with them on, to avoid those circumstances where that issue comes up later in the process. Secondly, we will be updating the code, as Ryan's mentioning, on that. And then third, we will be updating the website, our web page as well. And we're going to make sure, until the code is updated, that there's a note there that Canby Fire needs to be clearly noted.
Thank you for repeating that. That makes sense.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners before we proceed to the applicant? Okay, then let's go to the applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Not really.
Not really. Well, let me see if that's on my end or just a general system problem.
Rick?
Yeah.
Rick, you're muted.
How about now?
Well, you're not muted, but certainly we have some kind of feedback issue going on. I'm not sure where it's coming from.
I don't know if I'm the source or not. I don't think so, but
I don't think you are either. I couldn't say where it's coming from, but it's more irritating and annoying than anything else. So I think we'll move ahead with your presentation anyway.
okay. I'll try to speak up, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Well, Ryan basically went through most of all the points I had outlined for myself for my presentation, so I'll keep it very brief since you're having a hard time hearing anyway. I do have Bruce Goldson, the project engineer, here tonight, who can also speak if you have questions about engineering issues. But basically, the project, as Ryan noted, is designed to conform to city code standards. We've talked with the fire department about the 26-foot width that they've asked for. We can accommodate that, and what we'll propose to do is put an additional 3-foot easement alongside the flag stem, so there's a total of 26 feet. You know, that wasn't something we knew, obviously, going into the design, but I don't think it will cause any problems with us as far as being able to conform with it, and we're willing to accept that condition. So I think the conditions, the way you have them worded, where we have to seek fire district approval anyway, really covers that. So if they do modify it, then we don't have to come back to you. When I had the neighborhood meeting, there were a lot of questions raised on the project. There were a number of neighbors who live on Oak Street to the north of the project who don't want Oak Street extended south to 17th Street. They are concerned about through traffic, and they have children, and they're, the normal neighborhood safety concerns. We noted that that's a part of the city's transportation plan. It's really not something we have concerns, we have any control over. So then I'm sure you'll probably hear some testimony about that, but we've done what the city code tells us we have to do, and that's to tie these streets together. As Ryan noted, we looked at, the offset intersection issue. We decided to make the Oak Street intersection conform as close as possible because that's the more major street. Persimmon Street just comes out of the development to the south and only has a few homes along it, so there's hardly any traffic there. Ryan noted our last minute change on the lot configuration for lots 9 through 15. That's done. When we saw the condition of approval about coordinating with the county, we remembered how hard it was to get in Hamilton Acres the access onto Pine Street, and we thought we'd better make a revision to address it here because we don't have to come back to you at a later time. So this plan conforms to the city code, as Ryan noted in his staff report, and it just will make this so the access is all onto city local streets, and we think that's a better allocation of our lots in that area. The issue on the traffic study, the intersection at Pine and 4th Street is not something we can control, obviously, but I would note that, as Ryan said, we are contributing funds to the STCs that will help to pay for the ultimate improvements that the city needs in this traffic system. But beyond that, there are other ways in and out of this area that can avoid that during peak traffic situations. If you're going to go north on 99, you can go up to Territorial and go out that way. If you're going into town, you can take the Territorial or 17th over to other streets that will get into town. So it's not like it's a major problem for the people who will reside in this subdivision. There are other solutions. With that, I don't have any other concerns about the conditions of approval. If you have questions, we'll be happy to try to answer them for you. You're muted, Commissioner.
There we go. Are there any questions for Mr. Gibbons from any of the commissioners at this point?
No questions here.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jeff?
No questions, John.
Thank you. Mr. Boatwright?
No questions.
Okay. Thank you, Rick, for the presentation. It was very informative and well done. Thank you. Lainey, do we have any other proponents that would wish to speak in favor of the project at this time?
I believe we do. Let me look on here because most of the people are muted. Donna, are you going to speak on this matter tonight? If you are, there you go. Okay. This is Donna.
I'm not a proponent.
Okay, Donna, could you say your name and your address, please?
Yes. Donna Tron, 710 Northeast 17th Avenue. I'm right on the corner of Maple and 17th.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, basically, Mr. Gibbons was wonderful at our October meeting that we had. He comes across quite differently tonight. Like, he really cared about us and our problems in October, and tonight he really doesn't. It's all of these traffic problems aren't a major thing. Well, of course not, because he doesn't live here, so they're not to him, but they are to us. And it's going to 42 homes on that little piece of property appalls me, quite frankly. It is going to put so much traffic on 17th, on our direction, on the Pine direction. It just, I don't know when is this going to end? It's like this is one of the last beautiful green spaces, those lovely trees. I've lived in my home for 40 years, and it's breaking my heart that this has happened. I don't think those trees, I'm sure they're going to take them all down, and they shouldn't. They're old trees, and it's just a shame that that's going to happen. And I feel through this whole process that the people who live here, we just don't matter anymore. We just don't matter in Canby. I'm really upset with our town. You know what? Our street floods. We have sewer problems. I don't think this is going to help that. I don't know that the city can handle this. You know, I don't know that it can. All of the building that's going on. I don't know if our infrastructure is able to support it. All I know is that we have, ever since I've lived here, trouble with flooding in the streets and drainage and sewer problems. And so 42 homes in this block, that is not going to help the situation. And speaking to the tree issues again, you know, there's wildlife, there's deer habitat there. We have, you know, deer, raccoons, ravens, eagles, and hawks come and use those trees. They don't nest there, but they sit in them. They're hunting. It just, you know, I don't know what to say except that it bothers me that this was already completely in motion. There was never any signage. We knew nothing about any of this going on till basically there wasn't anything we could do about it. So I don't know, you know, what else to say. I feel bad for the people with the young children that have been able to play in these streets. Our children played in our street. Now the young families, you know, they're not going to be able to. They have tiny little yards. I don't know, you know, I'm talking about quality of life. To me, for this neighborhood, from Maple clear through to Pine, it's going to really affect the quality of life of everybody who lives there. And I think even the people who are going to be in these new homes. So that being said, I just, you know, I'm against it. I would even be for it if it were even half as many homes in there would even be, you know, wouldn't be, you know, would just be half that much extra traffic. I'm just really don't know how they're going to fit 42 homes in there, but I guess that's all I have to say on the matter. I appreciate the time. I feel that it doesn't matter what I say, and I'm sorry, but I do feel that way. But I also felt I couldn't just sit back and not have my say and let it go through. So thank you for your time and consideration.
And we thank you for your time and consideration as well. It's refreshing to hear from the public and get some input. So thank you very much for saying your piece. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? Okay. Lainey, do we have any other proponents?
Unless they speak up, I don't think so. I think Donna was the only one.
Okay. So I guess then we will move, since that was a opponent rather than a proponent, we'll move on to the rebuttal. If Rick, do you have anything that you wish to say to address the issues that were just presented?
I just want to make sure there are no other opponents who wish to testify.
Yeah, I don't.
Nobody else showed up. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Ms. Strawn feels that way. It wasn't my intent. I was only referring to the intersection of 4th and Pine when I said that there are other ways out. I understand the concerns about traffic congestion, and those things go along with development. The property is zoned for this. It's not on the city's plans for acquisition for parks. So it is on the city's master plan for development as proposed. So the plan is consistent with everything in the city's land use regulations. I understand the problem of having things happen in your neighborhood and things changing, but you know, we're just doing what the code and the city's ordinances and zoning call for this property.
Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Mr. Givens from any of the other commissioners? Okay, thank you, Rick. At this time, I will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and we can move on to questions by commissioners for amongst ourselves and for staff. Jeff, do you have any further comment or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one comment, and it's directed to staff and their excellent report. But I think I found one item that we might want to change or correct, and it's on the very top of the page 69 of 180, where it says overall the proposed subdivision has a density of 2.52 units per acre. That's 2.52. I think that number is wrong. I'll defer to staff on that, but I think it's probably something over higher than that. And probably the final report should reflect that.
Ryan,
This is Ryan. I'll have to pull that up. There's only 16 pages in the actual staff report. So let me pull it up so I can see.
Page 5, it's on page 5 of the staff report, Ryan. Top of page 5 of the staff report.
Oh.
And this is a very minor thing. I mean, I think we all understand what the project is, but that's a number that people tend to look at a lot in some cases.
Right. Sure. Yeah, we can amend that on our website.
Okay. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything. Some reservations about the congestion that the situation will exacerbate, but I think we're taking steps to address that in the longer term. But I'm interested in what other commissioners might have to say.
thank you, Jeff. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts or questions?
I just I want Donna to know that, and I would say your last name, but I can't pronounce it. Sorry. I just want her to know that she's been heard, and I understand that it's frustrating, but we do, as a commission, have our hands tied to a point based on the current state laws and what we need to approve if it's within the urban growth boundaries. So I just want you to know you have been heard. But,
I do understand that. I do know the state laws. I understand that. It isn't, I do. I get that.
Yeah.
I just thank you for letting me say my piece.
No, and that's why I wanted to make sure you were acknowledged that I hear you, and I'm sorry you're frustrated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. Commissioner Boatwright, any questions or thoughts?
No questions, but I agree with, I'm glad Jennifer brought that up because I am frustrated too. And if you've listened to all our planning commission meetings over the last few years, we've expressed that displeasure with the sizes of the lots and the traffic. But like Jennifer says, it comes from a higher authority. And the only way we can fix it is to get rid of them. And I'm in favor of getting rid of them, just about all of them. So other than that, Mr. Givens did a very nice report. I'm going to vote in favor of this, along with the recommendations of approval, and except for striking 40. So that's it.
Thank you, Larry. Do you want to, I'll entertain a motion to, at this time then, to approve SUB 20-03 /VAR 20-01, the Beckwood Place subdivision. Will you make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I make a motion we approve SUB 20-03 /VAR 20-01, Beckwood Place subdivision with all the recommendations from the planning staff except for 40.
Do I have a second for that?
This is
Can
Jeff.
Brian
I'll second.
confirm that that's what he intended the motion to read? I just want to make sure that we got the verbiage straight before we approve it.
Yes, I think that works.
Okay. In that case, unless Jeff wants to second it, I second it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. I gavel that down and but I don't have a gavel. So there we go. Thank you very much. So at this time, we will move along to the final decisions of the items that we just discussed. So we'll start with the final decisions for DR 20-06 /CUP 20-04, the Canby Fire Emergency Fire and Medical Station. I will entertain a motion to approve that final decision.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Thank you very much. Now we will move along to a final decision for SUB 20-03 /VAR 20-01, Beckwood Place subdivision.
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we got that. Just and Laney, just let me know when you need me to come over and sign papers.
Did you call a vote, John?
I did.
You need to call a vote on that last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's been a long 2 weeks and I'm on pain medication. So there you go. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
That only makes this all easier to take, John.
I know it's, I'll go in for hip surgery on a more frequent basis, but I only have 2 hips.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Okay, so we'll move on to items of interest from the planning department. I see that our next meeting is scheduled for the 22nd. Is that still on, Lainey?
Yes, it is. You will be reviewing the Western RV storage on that one, and also introducing our newest planning commissioners.
Okay, of which we have 2.
Yes, we do.
There you are.
We have a full house again.
Yes, we will. That'll be nice. Do the commissioners have any items of interest that they would like to pass along to the planning staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
So it's come to my attention that there are a lot of people in town that would be interested in a food cart pod, but our ordinance doesn't currently allow that. And my understanding is that it has to start at the planning commission level to get that ordinance changed, and then go to city council. And I'm wondering what that process is, if we have to wait until somebody comes in and says, hey, I want a food cart, or is it something that when we are reviewing and changing some of the other language in the ordinance and in the code that we could include for discussion.
I think I'd like to respond to that one. That's a really good point, and we're understanding the same thing as well, that there are folks that are very interested in doing that. And Jamie, our economic development director, is planning on reaching out to council to work session that item. And I don't have an exact timeline on that, but we do understand that that is something that there are a number of folks that want to do in the community. It would go through planning commission and then through council on that. And we've already, on the planning side of things, started to look at those communities that we think would have standards that would reflect what Canby would like to do here as part of that. So we're already kind of looking at that, but we will need direction from council to basically green light that, to say, yes, let's go ahead and proceed ahead with that. And I don't have an exact, apologize, I don't have an exact time on when that will go to council, but we are seeing more and more interest in that.
So I misunderstood, and it does have to originate with council and then come back to planning commission and then go back to council? Or
Well,
is that something we would workshop together? I don't quite understand.
I think the idea behind it is ultimately it will be a legislative change. And so I think starting with council and getting their buy-in on that was the idea behind it. And it absolutely, it might be something that could be a joint discussion on that. But I think because it's legislative in its nature, I think that is something that was thought that council would be the first ones to be involved with that.
Okay.
I would also point out that the planning commission, this came before the planning commission a few years back. I can't say exactly what year. So, but we've already had this before us at one time, just to bring you up to date. And I'm sorry, I simply can't remember what year that was. I remember the discussion, but I just don't remember what year
Could I weigh in here, Chair Savory?
You bet.
Yeah, I was on the commission then, and one of the problems we seem to have with that is the tax system. All the restaurants and stores with delis and all that are paying these property taxes, and the food cart guys wouldn't be burdened with that same thing. So we kind of, well, you remember Cutsforth put one in, but they built it into their front porch kind of for a while. So it was like a hard structure. One thing that I don't know about food carts all over town, but I don't think I'd have a problem with like lunch wagons over by all these warehouses and stuff. But anyway, that's some of the stuff that came up. So we did discuss it, and at that time we decided not to change anything to allow them.
You're exactly correct. And that is, and the reasoning was that the more substantial structures, for lack of a better term, restaurants that have put a lot of money and investment into their facilities, paying taxes and, above and beyond. It seemed like unfair competition that we were letting the food carts slide by with at lower standards, lower taxation, and all of that goes along with that. So
I didn't mean to start the discussion here, and I don't think that this is the time for that discussion, but I just wanted to find out what the process was and not get into the discussion of the actual food carts.
Understood. I just wanted people to have somewhat of a background. And thank you, Larry, for filling us in. Okay, so our next meeting is the 22nd. Don will be following up on the food cart situation. At this time, unless there's other discussion that we'd like to have, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
I,
Then we are adjourned. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and participating, and I'm sure the citizens of Canby appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, John.